Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the, I'm going to say 21st Ordinary Meeting of the Society. Yes, I'm probably correct.
I could double check.
Welcome to the 21st Ordinary Meeting of the Society. Start off as we do, as always, with announcements. I have put a big announcement to start off with, and it's less of an announcement and more of an apology to our ordinary members who were there on Monday night for what can loosely be described as an AGM. Yeah. So I suppose I have an apology to make to our members tonight. There was a bit of an indiscretion on Monday night whereby we counted not only a ballot that was cast on the night, but also a postal vote by the same person that was cast several days previously. And that meant that this was counted in every round of voting for every position on council. Thankfully, it only actually had a tangible effect on one office, that being secretary, but that was rectified, and that was the only office that it affected. We're looking into the procedure as to how we fix that in the future. What happened was we had a tie for that secretarial position, a tie that wasn't really. It was a tie on the basis of the double vote that we counted, when in fact it wasn't, so we then had to sort of rerun that in the absence of, with that vote taken out. So it kind of messed everything up, but it only had a tangible effect on that one office. So, as I said, we're looking into a new procedure as to how we make everything run a bit more efficiently, a bit more transparently, and so that nobody's left disappointed on the evening again. So I can only apologise for that. We are also looking in, because of that tie, we realised that the tie that wasn't, we realised that there isn't actually any constitutional provision for what happens in the event of a tie. Now, what's happened previously is that we've just had gone, oh right, well we'll just put it to a vote of the House again, but we've realised that for a cornucopia of reasons that is not an acceptable way of dealing with a tie. The questions of meritocracy being taken into account there. So we're looking into that, and I apologise for that. On a slightly lighter note, I've been informed that a new society has been ratified, of which an ordinary member of the society, now ordinary member of the society, treasurer of the society, Miss Keira Campbell, is the president of. And some girl called Megan, I've also been told, is secretary of that. So an applause to both of them. Unless any of my fellow council members have any announcements.
Conversazione. If anyone wants to buy tickets off me, please drop me a message. 35 quid for meat eating tickets, 32.50 for veggie tickets. I'm about pretty much the entirety of Easter, and just drop me a message. I'm about all the time. You can come grab one. I'm putting up the menu later. Should be really, really good night. Love to see as many of you there as really possible. Please and thank you.
Yes. I mean, this isn't the appropriate time for it, but why not?
Well, it is and it isn't. I mean, when were you expecting me to bring it up? Like private members' business?
Yeah.
It definitely isn't. It's an announcement, and the announcement is that we have our council elections, but one of our rules is in fact an essentially unelected rule. It's chosen by myself, the technology officer, and it is then ratified by the membership, which is what we shall be doing today. And it is my pleasure to announce in what was an extremely close run race between Mr. Matthew Sullivan, Mr. Robert Clark and Mr. Matthew Bradley that our new tech officer for the 169th session will be Mr. Matthew Bradley. With that provision. So maybe don't celebrate yet.
So they can bring me out.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So then I'll have to pick someone else.
That's fair. Should I not say the rest of the council before we vote on that, or?
Probably.
That's fair enough. Yeah, that reminds me that I actually do need to announce the rest of the council. So, following our very resoundingly successful AGM on Monday, we had a new council. The 169th session of the Liverpool Council has been elected. They are as follows. Be prepared to do quite a persistent amount of applauding for the next 5 minutes. Our president of the next session will be Mr. Calvin Black. Will be Mr. Peter Black. Minister of the next session will be Mr. John McAleenan. Internal convener of the next session will be Mr. Peter Dunn. External convener will be Mr. Hugh Dublin. Training officer shall be Mr. Lily Better. Shall be Miss Laura O'Neill. And I've boxed up the order of that, but we'll move on to the last position. Anyway, Mr. Social Officer, the Social Officer shall be Mr. Connolly. And with that, we move on to the next. I would put it now, but before we move on to the minutes and everything else, basically because Monday night went on for about literally 6 hours. Yeah. We usually at our AGM we elect our honorary members of the society, or we nominate them and then we ratify them. These are people who've shown consistent dedication and service to the society. So basically we have we allow 5 nominations for those positions. So if anyone here would like to nominate someone they think has shown extraordinary dedication and service to the society, they can put that forward, and then we'll vote. We can. I don't really want to have a debate on it because I don't like debating the merit of a person. That's unfair, but we'll just ratify it in that case. So, your first recommendation, Mr. Whitehurst?
For his services to breakfast recommendations, as well as his consistent, reassuring timbre throughout these Thursday nights, I would like to nominate Mr. President Ben Murphy.
Second.
Turn it down.
You totally buggered it because you're not allowed to do that.
Am I not?
No.
Sit next to
the next president of the next.
You cheeky.
Ratified.
You can wait a year.
Yeah, I know. It's how people will for me a year on, you know that we're 5 bow ties or a thing. So yeah, moving so we
Hold that for a year. That beautiful speech I just gave.
Mr. Colin Black, would you have any nominations?
Yes, I certainly would, Mr. President. Do you mind if I say the thing that I said I was going to say before at the end of the nomination at the end of the night? Nice little bow. Just let me go with it. Basically, that made no sense because that was in code that only benched, understand? 2.5 years. Yeah, 2.5 years. I was the unofficial tech guy. I recorded the bits and blah blah blah. And I would be happy if a recording got as many as 40 downloads. Last year, I appointed Mr. Chris Spratt to be my successor. In that time, Chris has seen the download count skyrocket to an average of over 100 downloads each. He has achieved over 200 on 2 separate bits, and most importantly, he has become a fully fledged operating member of council, which is more than I ever was. Mr. Chris Spratt has by far and away surpassed anything I ever was as technology officer, and so I implore the House to give him an honorary membership.
Well, I mean, unless we want to pay him any more compliments, I think we'll be ratifying that.
Can I commend him for his very droll wit, please?
You may. I suppose you can.
There we are.
Anyone else want to pay him a compliment?
I ain't overrated.
Yourself, sir.
I think we shouldn't give it to him until we have a second nomination for the life membership.
I mean, but like, because then we have to vote on all of them at once, and then you have one bad apple spoiling the entire 5. So, I mean, I think we'll do it individually. That's all right. In which case, I think we'll move to a vote of ratification on our first honorary life member.
No one seconded that.
What? Somebody has to second that. Somebody second that. Thank you very much. I mean, you know what I mean. Right. In that case, we will vote for the ratification of our first honorary life member of the 168th session of the all in favour of ratifying Mr. Chris Stratt, say aye and raise your hand. Aye. Any nays? Any abstentions? You don't have to be contrary all the time.
He supports Remain.
That is true. Yes, so we'll move on to the next nomination.
I can't say anything, can I?
You're not allowed to say anything. Yes, by all means.
Oh, jeez. What a metric to judge whether someone should receive a life membership or not is increasing the listeners. But I do have to say that this really does mean quite a lot. That the past year.
I can't hear our online ever making a speech.
The past year had been quite a trying and testing period of my life. With some quite scary, serious health concerns and worries that I have to admit, over 3 times I considered resigning from the role because I was so scared for my health. And yet, all this time, the Literific had been here for me, supporting me, and just there to have a good time, so it really does mean a lot.
Yeah, as I can say of most of our, all of our council members this year, I've always appreciated the fact that our council members, Chris especially, have gone beyond just what is in the Constitution for them to do, just beyond the basic functions of what the Constitution says they have to do. Chris has always been extremely vocal in telling me when some of the things I've gone for are bollocks. On more occasions than I care to admit. So I can think of no better candidate to be our first honorary life member of the session. With that, we'll move on to any other nominations because we have 4 more to get through before we actually move on to the debate.
We don't have to fill them all, right?
We do, absolutely. No, so if anyone has any other nominations?
What other categories? Give us an idea.
There aren't any other categories, it's just people who've shown extraordinary dedication, long service to the society. So, yes, Mr. Spratt?
So I'm not allowed to nominate the President, but I'm allowed to nominate the Secretary, Mr. Rob Whitehurst.
You are, but I'd advise against it. So, by all means, what grounds?
I would like to nominate Mr. Rob Whitehurst for his outstanding service to the society and being a reasonable, decent egg.
Seconded.
Put decent egg on your CV. See how far that gets.
I'm worried about this vote. We might want to on courses.
Anybody else like to say anything else in that regard for the issue, or shall we move to ratification of that? No, then we'll ratify. Or no.
You lifted the tone and spirits of everyone at every debate that I've ever been to, so that is something to which you should be commended.
You should have been there for all the ones that you weren't there for. Those. It's a real big story.
It's a rough start.
Let's go.
This is my first year meeting, and honestly, from like the first week in the house bar, it was like one of the most welcoming to me, and it's definitely one of the reasons why I stayed on, but I'm still here.
And with that, I think we'll move on to ratification of our second honorary life member. All those in favour of ratifying Mr. Whitehurst as our second life member of this session, please raise your hand and say aye. Aye. Those against? Craig? Yes. Right, well, that's the ratification, I suppose. Hooray! The last night, if anyone has any nominations, please speak now or forever hold your peace, at least until this time next year. Mr. Cargill?
I would like to nominate Miss Lily Vetter for being in the society now for 3 years, I believe. Been on council for 2 of them, going into a 3rd year now. I've noticed she's done, just as a regular member, I've noticed she's done quite a huge amount for the society in organising events and holding the debate suggestion, long meetings. So I would like to nominate her.
A worthy nomination here. I just said in that regard, in that capacity over the last, what?
He wants some wine.
No, I have to say, the duration of this council, Lily said to me earlier, she was added to the group chat for the next official 169. That's what she was saying. I'm going to have to be the mother hen again, aren't I? I'm going to have to sell a bit, like, slap them around the back of the head and, like, keep them.
I mean, I didn't put it quite like that, but yeah.
That's pretty much what she's done over this session as well. So I commend her for that. Does anyone else want to say anything in that regard for our life member? Ms. Francis Hilton?
Yeah, do I have to stand?
Yes.
So I very rarely make debates because it clashes with my tennis and that's kind of more important to me. But I do live with me and I see all the work that goes on behind it. She's always rushing around and she never shuts up about it. And I feel like I'm here every week anyway because I hear it all from her. So I'm worthy of nomination.
Here. And with that, we'll move on to ratification of our final HLM this evening. All those in favour of ratifying Lily Vetter as our 3rd honorary item member of the 160th session of the society, please raise your hands and say aye. Aye. All those against say nay. Abstentions? No. Great. Fantastic then. I welcome our 3rd honorary member of the society for the 168th session, and I'm going to move swiftly onward because we're really eating into time.
Who seconded it? Who seconded it? Just for them.
Oh yes,
Chris.
Yeah.
Chris
did put up, he seconded it, I just didn't down, so. Yes, so with that we'll move on to the minutes of the last bit, and I believe I remember it correctly this week, it's this house would abolish grammar school. Yay!
By the way, Ben, it is the 22nd.
You lying?
It is the 22nd.
Yeah.
Good evening, all. The 21st Ordinary Meeting of the Literary and Scientific Society at Queen's University Belfast took place on the 30th of March and was attended by 48 members. Mr. Hugh Dobbin wished to send our best wishes to the intrepid literary Africans competing in the Court Maidens, while Mr. John McLean wished to send our best wishes to the intrepid members of Her Majesty's Government in negotiating with the EU. Ms. Rachel Ireland asked Mr. Hewlett to sit down. Tech Officer Chris Pratt demanded this be stricken from the minutes, while Dr. Crane wished to see another referendum where we are more clear on the grounds for divorce. Mr. Morgan Hickman stated this wasn't unilateral. Mr. Jason Bunting was tired of referenda and didn't want another one, while Mr. Sullivan, Adair and Miller grumbled about alternative facts. Moving on, Mr. Matthew Sullivan wished to know the House's opinion on the Daily Mail front page of Brexit. Ms. Rachel Ireland said it was terrible and wondered how it made past multiple pairs of human eyes before being released in the world. Before Mr. Killian Thornton asked if anyone was even surprised at their antics. President's questions were heard from Mr. Matthew Sullivan, who wished to know what President Murphy had for breakfast. Mr. Murphy commented that he enjoyed a white pudding with the looking glass here. Finally, Dr. Miller asked how the President would fare in Brexit. He responded that all 27 member states would end up where they belong, as part of the glorious United Kingdom. Without further ado, President Murphy then asked the motion for the evening of this House would abolish grammar schools. Opening for the proposition of the debate was long awaited Speaker Mr. Matthew Wilkinson. He opened by saying that segregating students at such a young age caused permanent psychological damage, is elitist, and does nothing to improve social mobility. He asserted that only 3% of grammar school students claim free school meals, a sign that the system is creating schools with little to no working class representation. And he concluded that any segregation is a sign of a failed system and that we should instead look to the Finnish model of education. Opening for the opposition was Ms. Kira Campbell. She stated that banning grammar schools is an often bandied about idea which simply wouldn't work as practice. She claimed that there is some element of meritocracy within our school system, where if you're a good student, you deserve to go to a good school. She also referenced Northern Ireland typically, claiming that the abolition of grammar schools would open up a can of worms regarding education segregated already in that vision. Continuing with the case of proposition was Mr. Peter Dunn. He lambasted the current grammar school system as being fundamentally unfair, binary and outdated. He asserted that placing a child at age 11 based on their ability is ineffective and curtails their education, and that it is never too late to learn and achieve your true potential. He concluded that this was a matter of social justice and asked the House to listen to the opinion of experts and teachers. Speaking second of the opposition's main speaker, Mr. Patrick. He claimed that while he and his fellow opposition speakers had the youth's best education at heart, while the proposition were attempting to box in students, he put forth that targeted education would be misplacing the trust of parents to provide the best individual education for their children. He concluded by saying that grammar schools are often more diverse than comprehensives and abolishing them would lead to other schools charging fees to enter. Concluding the proposition was Dr. Craig Miller. He opened by saying that the proposition was to introduce the best possible fair system, asking once again to look at the Finnish model. He claimed that it is only between the ages of 11 and 12 that children begin to think abstractly, meaning that separated at this age inevitably leads to some label in which they left behind. He lambasted Tony Blair, citing his education initiative sentenced back 20 years, before going on to criticise the current government for not allocating enough resources to schooling. Concluding the opposition in the debate with Mr. Conor Arnold. He asserted that nothing the opposition proposed that evening would deny pupils the opportunity to shine and go on to higher education. He claimed that state comprehensives teach pupils how to get a C grade, whereas grammar teaches them how to achieve an A, before going on to state that they look beyond a two-tier system. He concluded that grammar schools have helped social mobility and to push back the sectarian divide in Northern Ireland. Questions are from Christine Fleming, Robert Clark, Rob Myers, Grace Foster, Hugh Dobbin, and Keith Thornton. A vote based on House opinion prior to the debate was taken, which read 11 ayes, 17 nays, and 13 abstentions. Meanwhile, a casting vote based on speaker performance was taken, which read 22 ayes, 11 nays, and 8 abstentions. And we get the minister right.
Nay.
Hang on, hold your applause. Yes, Mr. Spence.
There was one name left off that list of people who asked questions. And I believe that was as a result of deep underlying and maybe pathological bias from the secretary. And that name was my very own. Asking a question about how grammar schools would impact, the abolishment of grammar schools would impact rugby in Ulster. I wish those bits of information be included in the minutes.
I have two responses to this. First of all, in the official, shall we say, zeitgeist of the moment that was going around, the question was not officially asked, it was only addressed in passing by, I believe, the final speaker of the opposition, which was, tonight as it was then, Mr. Conor Arnold. And I would also say that I saved the House a good 45 seconds of tumultuous nonsense because everyone knows that rugby is a terrible sport and should be banished from history. Thank you, everyone.
With that, we move very swiftly on private members' business. I will take two brief items of private members' business. I don't have any congratulations, commiserations, salutations, felicitations. I practiced in the mirror. Yes, Mr. McNally.
If any of the speakers need pens and paper,
Oh, yeah.
please do not ask.
Yeah.
So we can have
You guys alright?
You guys all okay? Cool.
And on that exciting note, I'll take another item of private members' business. Anyone has a motion or debate they'd like to see for the House? No, brilliant, that makes it all easier. So, any President's questions on that note? Fantastic, makes it even better. No! Fine.
In the absence of anyone else asking, I'm going to ask, what did Mr. President Benjamin James Thomas Murphy have for breakfast this?
I ventured forth to the cafe near the haven of the Liberal elite on a cold Thursday morning, and I had a croissant. I believe it was appropriately filled with jambon and cheese, so it was very nice, and accompanying latte. I'm left-wing, I swear. So yes, moving on to the substantive debate decision. Before we get to that, I should probably introduce the lovely people you see sitting in the corner of the room. To the right of our office, what am I saying? Oh, right to the right a little bit. I know, but I'm just... To the right of your internal convener is Mr. Harry there. winner of the Dufferin Award for the 100 what? Winner of the Dufferin Award for the 165th session, left of her, the most judgmental person I know, one of our best speakers, and by far our best judge, Mr. James McNally. Yeah, the judge says, yeah, sorry. I mean, you're cynical too, but that's not the point. But yeah, one of our best judges, Mr. James McNally, we all give our judges a round of applause. So we move on to the Dufferin Award debate. You probably said beforehand that there was at one point an award, the Dufferin Medal, given to us by the Dufferin, it was lost. We got another one. I'm pretty sure that was probably lost too. So your reward tonight will be a very affectionate, very well-deserved pat on the back. So,
they get a certificate at the
they get a certificate as well.
So if you can't go to the formal, then
You get a certificate for thank you for reminding me there. And with that, we will get on with substantive debate this evening. I welcome the floor.
Mr. President, first of all, so that everyone in the room knows, and so that everyone knows the environment this evening, what is the motion they are debating, and what is the...
I was about to say,
You're about to introduce head, are you?
on the motion.
What are you in
I'm
charge?
just making sure you're paying attention. So, speaking on the motion, this house would open clean, dry use things.
this house
Drug zones is what it's
the motion is
It's not what we were talking about.
this house would open supervised injecting centres for drug addicts.
That's it.
Okay, and they were given a sheet beforehand, which basically gives them like what supervised injecting centres are, and the fact that there are none currently in Northern Ireland.
Not the word next to me earlier. Anyway, I welcome to the floor the first speaker of the proposition, Mr. Peter Beck.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, esteemed judges, members of the opposition, and fellow members of the proposition. As has been mentioned, this House would open supervised injection centres for drug addicts. So what is a supervised drug injection centre? It's a place where drug addicts can go and inject themselves with their own drugs as safely as possible in a supervised setting. Pretty self-explanatory. These people would be over 18 and would only be addicts who have access to. So the idea behind this is that drug addiction is not some sort of moral failing. Drug addiction is not something that should be judged by the opposition or by anyone else. These are people who need help. These are people who, through what has happened in their life and through failings in society, have seen no other option but to turn to recreational drugs as their source of comfort and have become addicted to these substances. They need help, they don't need judgment, and the centres, the supervised injection centres that we're proposing can provide this. The idea being that if someone's injecting on the street, if they're injecting with their own needles or shared needles, the risk of drugs increases 10-fold, 100-fold. From the actual drug itself to everything that goes along with it, the risk of HIV, the risk of other infections, it increases the effect of drugs to a point where it goes beyond just the substance being injected. It also provides a place for drug addicts to come and seek help. These are people who are ostracised by society, these are people who are judged by everyone else in society. This is a place where they can come, there can be interventions, they can have access to healthcare. We talk about something called the inverse healthcare law, where the people who need healthcare the most, such as drug addicts, are those who usually have the least access to it. This will give them that opportunity to get the help that they need and to get the support that they need. It can also cut costs because it gives one place where these drug addicts can get help.
Point of information. On the one hand, you were suggesting that these places will cut stigma, yet on the other hand, you're suggesting that there will be places where people will be trying to push into help programs. If people are feeling that they're going to be judged in these centres, surely they're not going to come in the first place, and surely all the issues that you just outlined don't happen.
Like I said, Mr. Chairman, to clarify that I didn't say that they'd be pushed into anything. The option would be there. If they wish to have this help, they could take it. These, if you ever see the nicotine replacement adverts, it says it requires willpower, so there's no point offering these or forcing these services on people who don't want them. The option would be there, and the hope would be that these people have recognised that they have a problem with the fact that they're having to use a centre, so they would be willing to take that, but it wouldn't be forced down anyone's throat. This is not a new idea. As it has been done in places before, let's look at Holland where it has taken place. They, at a time, had one of the world's worst rates for heroin addiction. That has now fallen massively and is one of the best in the world.
That point, son. I'm not really comparing it like for like, because they legalise marijuana at the same time as having the injection centres.
Okay, they've legalised marijuana in some settings, that's a whole different issue in of itself, but that I don't see how that connects to the heroin abuse as well, and they were at different times. So what happens in Holland is that it takes the thrill out of drugs. There's the idea that whenever you're injecting yourself with drugs, yes, there's the actual chemical effect of the drug, but also a lot of the addiction comes from what is surrounding that. The excitement of actually obtaining the drugs, the idea that you're evading the police, all the excitement goes along with it. Something like this helps to take away that idea. In fact, it can go so far as to make drug abuse boring and routine. And what this does is that people who they lose addiction. I know it sounds quite ridiculous, but that's because sort of the public portrayal of addiction is completely wrong. Once you take away everything that's added to that, a lot of people simply lose the addiction and are able to move away from being addicted to drugs. And as I pointed out, at Holland, they have a system similar to this, and it has worked. It has cut heroin addiction massively. It also gives a controlled place for many people to take drugs. If it's not there that can be injecting anywhere, you always hear stories about children out playing and picking up needles and all the risks that brings itself, and putting the rest of the public at danger. So the idea is here that we can protect drug addicts, but we can also protect the rest of society. Because it means that everything associated with drug, or a lot of things associated with drug abuse, would be confined just to one place and would be able to be dealt with safely. There wouldn't be needles left lying around, there wouldn't be drugs left lying around, obviously, so it would allow lives to be saved in the general population as well. Society is defined, I believe, I can't remember who said this, but society is defined by how it treats those the most vulnerable, including, in my opinion, drug addicts. These are people whose society has ultimately failed and have no other option but to turn to the drugs that they have turned to. We have to do everything in our power to try and improve the lives of those people. We cannot just keep on going, criminalising and making it and punishing drug addicts more. What we need to do is offer solutions, and that's what the proposition here are doing this evening. We're offering a solution. It's not going to be perfect, it's not going to solve all instances of drug abuse, it's not going to be the right thing for everyone, not even everyone's going to take it up themselves. Take it off.
If this system's going to be optional, what measures would be put in place to make sure that the system isn't abused?
I'm trying to imagine ways this could be abused. It's simply a place for people to go and inject it. It's not a system where we're providing people with drugs themselves. So I really can't see how this can be abused. It is just a safe place for people to go. That's it. I can't see any way that can be abused. And in addition, and it will also then provide the access to the health services that are desperately needed by these people. Thank you.
To make the case for the opposition, I'm welcome to the floor the first speaker for the opposition, Mr. John McAloon.
Mr. President and honourable members of the House, firstly, I just want to say that we accept the financial motion tonight. Drugs are a real issue in our society. You know, the war on drugs that was first made has failed, and millions of people are dying due to drug use and unsupervised use of drugs, which haven't been properly regulated, and that's why that's some of the issues we have. The first proposition spoke tonight about how countries that have opened up these injection centres have actually caused less drugs, that have minimised deaths by drugs. But we'd like to actually look at Portugal, who have some of the lowest deaths per million population in Europe. And 14 years ago, they actually legalised drugs. They decriminalised drugs. That's actually the real way of of tackling the problem.
On that point,
Go ahead.
how is legalising drugs mutually exclusive with this policy?
Well, I believe personally that the motion tonight does not go far enough to tackle the real issues that is facing people. It may mitigate some of the effects, such as bloodborne infection. You know, these centres do work to some extent. You know, they help to tackle things like overdosing, but they don't go far enough. Whereas a proper legalisation, a proper tax on drugs, and regulation by the government is the real way of doing it. When we look
on that point,
yeah.
What are the real issues then?
Well, okay, I was supposed to start that. Sorry. And let's look at one of the real issues: the sourcing of drugs. People who source the drugs are criminals. They're organised crime. It's people that, for example, in Northern Ireland, it might be people that are linked to the Troubles. It's people that want to destroy our communities. Drug dealers still have power and control in this system over the supply of drugs. That means that it's not tested. We don't know if these drugs are safe to use. And it's people are bringing in their own drugs, no thank you. But we shouldn't ignore the real problem. It's that these aren't properly regulated. These aren't properly controlled by the government to make sure that they work. You know, it doesn't go far enough. By passing the motion tonight, we're being encouraging this organised crime, the criminals that are attacking our communities, and putting more money into their pockets.
On that point?
Yeah.
The statistics Peter Beck gave said that drug use dropped when these were brought in. Would that not take money away from the illegal drug trade?
Sorry, but as I said, in Portugal it happened exactly the same way. Portugal, it's one of the lowest rates, but you're talking about the illegal trade. This would be controlled, legalised, just like any other products. You know, it wouldn't be like that. Addiction, it doesn't solve addiction. People would still be addicted to drugs. People would. It doesn't solve the real issues. Sorry.
On that point,
go ahead.
So you might say that it doesn't deal with what you perceive to be the real issues, but it may well still deal with some issues. What's the issue with trying to deal with those issues?
It's a spur point, but I believe personally that if we were to open these centres, then it doesn't really. I think it actually encourages drug users, and I believe it puts people in the path not to use weed, but instead to go straight to heroin. That's one of the issues there as well. People, instead of going through liner drugs like weed and etc., they go straight to heroin. The proposition also defined the motion as those for addicts. What about people that are new to drugs? What about people that are growing up in these, you know, not well-off families that, you know, and they're living in these areas where it's quite normal. They're living up in. Go ahead.
Would it not be better for these people to be introduced to drugs in a more controlled scenario rather than on the streets?
No, I agree, but the proposition defined it as only for addicted people to come in and to receive the healthcare. I'm going to end on that. Thank you.
With that, I welcome the next speaker for the proposition, Mr. Matthewson.
Well, first, in a radical turn of events, I'm not going to rebut anything that First Scott said. Because none of his ideas are mutually exclusive with what we're proposing, and in fact, even if we legalize all drugs, these centres are still entirely useful. And in fact, if we did legalize drugs, the benefits of this policy would still greatly outweigh any harms that it could possibly provide. You know, even if you're legalizing heroin, it would still be very good to have a place where people who are addicted to heroin can go to inject it so they don't get HIV or, you know, they don't overdose and then die. So that's a pretty good start. So I'm going to move on to some of the points that I have. As the first speaker of the proposition stated, one of the biggest risks of drug use, especially with needle drugs, is the risk of HIV. But with this policy, we completely eliminate that. Because we'll be giving them sterile needles, there will be no needle sharing, and so this will no longer be a vector for the transmission of HIV. So that's sure.
Go ahead.
It's Hep C. It's the main issue of needles sharing and injecting drugs and HIV.
Thank you for that information, but my point still stands, because it means that the spread of hepatitis C will also not be a big issue, as it was before. So that's another great benefit of this policy. Let's talk about the other benefits. No, thank you. It provides a mechanism, as the first proposition already said, to help people who do want help but feel they can't actually access. It means that people will go to these centres and, you know, we won't push them into it, but they will be shown that help is available if they want it, to help them to break their addiction. You know, you could have posters and such saying, are you addicted to drugs and don't want to be? Get help. Call a nurse. It's great. That's the sort of thing you could have at these centres. No, thank you. And so, we will have less people addicted to drugs because they will be able to much more easily and less stigma acquire the help which they so obviously need. So that's two great benefits. Another great benefit. It means that you're not going to have dirty needles littering the streets. You're not going to have all these issues where a child might come across a needle and go, I don't know what this is. No, thank you. Instead, there won't be any needles in the streets. Because why would you ever use a dirty needle when you can go to these centres and just do this for free? Get a sterile needle, no risk, it will be great. No thank you.
Point information.
No thank you. So, we've eliminated hepatitis C, we've reduced the number of addicts who are going to be addicts, and we've also reduced the number of children who are at risk from coming across dirty needles. It means there's going to be less drug use in the streets, which again is great for a community sense. I can't put that into words, but you know what I mean. It brings a sense of community because there won't be drug use in the streets. Fourthly, I just completely forgot the point I was going to make. Let me reread this so that I can remember that. Yeah, that's what it was. Yeah. So because these centres are medically supervised, we're eliminating the other big risk of drug use. As I said, there's no risk of hepatitis C anymore, and there's also no risk of overdose. Because, as these are medically supervised centres, if you do, for some reason, manage to inject far too much, you will have immediate help. There won't be a risk of you just dying because they can't ever get you to a hospital because they would never get you in time. You're in a hospital. You'll have nurses right there who go, oh, hey, that guy's dying of an overdose. We can immediately and easily help that guy and save his life. No thank you.
On that point, no?
No thank you. And so, we have eliminated 4 of the biggest harms of drug use. We've stopped the spread of infection. We have eliminated the risk of overdose. We have, what else have we done? Yeah, we prevented children from coming across these needles and being in danger as a result of that. And we've helped communities all across the country who might be hampered by gangs of people doing their marijuanas in the street.
Sorry, marijuana's not injected, mate.
Yeah, no, that was an entire joke. No thank you. And let's talk about possible harms that come from this policy. You might say that, for example, it would encourage more people to use drugs, but it won't, Because no one's going to think, oh yes, well, it's going to be really exciting to do these drugs. I can go to a hospital, into a clean room and inject myself. No, thank you. No, because it would be boring then. And so less people will use the drugs in the first place because it will be seen as a completely boring thing to do. There won't be any risks or excitement associated with it. No, thank you. Which is great because it means there's less people using these drugs in the first place. So it'll be mostly addicts going to these people who already need the help and who can now obtain the help that they need easily and without just being arrested or dying, because of course their options would then be otherwise risk the horrible effects of withdrawal or risk dying of injecting themselves with whatever it is, an overdose or hepatitis. And so we eliminate that harm as well. So, to summarize, 4 great benefits. We've basically removed all of the harms of drug use except for, the least ones, the ones that aren't likely to immediately kill you. And we've provided a benefit because there will be less people using drugs in the first place. Thank you.
Thank you. To continue the case for the opposition, Mr. Freedom.
Drugs. It is a nasty word. When you hear the word drugs, what we imagine is people clambering in dark alleys, needles, cigarettes, joints, whatever the rest, the heroines, the marijuanas. We have this negative imagery associated with all of it. Now, the case that the proposition have presented so far is that these stigmas and this perception is one that can be eliminated. They propose this squeaky clean image of drug use, which these safe injection centres will introduce. This is entirely not true, because what they show you is merely the squeaky clean surface. The crux of the problem of drug use lies instead on the dark underbelly of their metropolis, and that is where the problems lie. Before I outline my reasons why these injection centres are a terrible idea, I will instead first dissect why their ideas are terrible ideas. Now, firstly, I would like to bring up the point made by first speaker, the Honourable Peter Beck, about how people being ostracised, that drug users are outsiders. Now, I would like to propose that there are the social reasons people use drugs, something Craig will go into in much greater detail, but the fact is these people might still feel a secret shame. I imagine that if people are going to use these injection centres, there's no way they can be entirely anonymous. These people are going to have to come out of the dark at least slightly. But people who are addicted to these drugs, their situations, they're very often alone and frightened, and this kind of public help which you're so greatly trying to commend is not going to be used by everyone and may not be available to many of these people. Yes?
You're saying that these people are in the dark, so are you then suggesting that we should just leave them in the dark and not offer them any help? Because to me that doesn't sound like a very good idea.
No. As we already said, there are many other solutions to this. Maybe full legalisation being another one. Maybe going full Reagan with another war on drugs another one. Probably not. I didn't say that. I would like to move on to the second, and I think incredibly ludicrous, and I think slightly offensive point, which was made by both Peter Beck and Matthew Sullivan, which is that if somehow these drugs can be safely administered in a centre, then suddenly people will think that they are boring, that they will not want to use them. I am quite shocked, I must say, by their complete ignorance of the social reasons and the compounded reasons for why people actually use drugs. I don't need to go into any greater detail because Craig will, but the point is, this point falls apart. And your disrespect for the reasons of how these people become addicted and how they get into these situations shows the weakness of your case. Now, I will end this on one brief point made by Matthew Sullivan, which I can deconstruct, about this point that one of his main reasons is that we can avoid filthy needles on the streets, children finding them. Now, there are needle exchanges at pharmacies, a service which is just as readily available as these kind of centres that you're advocating. Since these are in existence, There's absolutely nothing added to this benefit by trying to bring in these safe injection centres. No. Now, on to my main points for today. Firstly, the point is that if we have these safe injection centres, it's going to incentivise the use of bad drugs. Now, what do I mean to this? This comes back to the black market, the criminal underworld, which is where the real issue lies, and the one that half of the proposition have ignored so far. If these safe injection centres are available, then the drug lords, the people who are running these crime rackets, one which these safe injection centres don't have, then they have no reason to try and make these drugs in any way safe. The point is that these services will have available that as soon as you OD, as soon as you are dangerous, then they'll be able to, to get you fully recovered on it. If this is the case, then these drug lords, the people who are controlling it, are not going to try and mitigate their...
On that point.
No. They're not going to try and do anything to regulate the way that their product is. And this is something...
On that point?
Yes.
Give him a bit more time.
Okay. So, I think this is something we need to be very aware of. That once people are able to easily use the drugs in this environment, the sort of drugs that are going to be created, the sort of drugs they're going to be supplied with, and the quantity in which they're going to take this supply of drugs is something very, very dangerous.
On that point.
No, and bringing in these centres doesn't try and address that concern. Now, the point is that having these injection centres is not going to curb addictions. And this is something that is also a huge problem. If someone is hooked on drugs, they are incredibly addicted, if there is total dependency, then this again, it creates a risk. Because if you're going into these injection centres, then once again, as soon as you go too dangerous, you can instantly be brought back. The reason that so many people can avoid these dangerous drugs is their fear. Their fear of these blood infections, their fear of overdosing. No. As soon as these centres become available, then people can take as many drugs as they want, and they can rely on these centres to be there. This creates a very dangerous situation. This is why we propose that this is not the best way to move forward. We need to tackle how many drugs people are actually taking, as well as what the effects of them taking drugs are. There are other measures to try and achieve this, as we said, possibly moving towards legalization of these drugs, but creating these safe injection centres is not going to help the people who are already addicted. Now, one more thing I'd like to say. What is one more thing I'd like to say? Because I know there is something. Great, we're all so excited. So, in conclusion, this bright, shiny idea of injection centres as a safe haven for reforming drug addicts is entirely false. Instead, it is a keystone, a monolith of public good proposed by government to try and say they're tackling one of the biggest problems in our society when they aren't. Because we are still going to have people suffering silently without support on the streets, shivering in the cold from their addictions. We are still going to have drug lords controlling the supply of drugs, because as Peter Beck said himself, people are going to be using their own drugs in these injection centres, which is not something I like the idea of. Thirdly, it's going to give people an incentive to take more drugs, and it's not going to help those with severe addiction because it can enable them to a certain degree. Overall, we see that once we have these safe injection centres, we do not try and fight the criminals who create this perpetual cycle of poverty and pain, and we do not try and regulate the drugs people are taking, the amount of pain they have, and we do not get to the root of why they have themselves in this situation in the first place. Oppose this motion today. Thank you very much.
Thank you for that. And to continue for the proposition, Mr. Shea Martin.
Thank you, President. I'd just like to start firstly about refuting the Honourable Member's point about criminality and what he focused on. You said that drug lords, if the centres that we propose are built, will not be likely to put any safety measures on their drugs because they won't have an incentive because people will be able to be revived in some kind of fantasy scenario in every overdose situation. Firstly, drugs are not safe already. That's part of the big reason why they are illegal. There comes an inherent risk of death and danger when you have them anyway, and that is already shown. It's shown that these drug lords simply do not care to that degree, and also, so the drug lords won't be concerned with overdosing their customers. Forgive me if my grasp of economics isn't very strong here, but I wouldn't say it's a wise business decision to create a scenario where you're going to overdose your customers and turn your customers into corpses. I don't think they're likely to get continued business.
I think the point is when somebody's going to one of these centres is that they're meant to be given naloxone when they're about to overdose or when they have overdosed and they're going into respiratory depression. The key thing here is that any user can just take as much as they want without the fear that they may overdose, because when they do overdose and they go into respiratory depression, naloxone works instantly.
Obviously, it is difficult sometimes, especially when these people are bringing their own drugs, and I'll talk about why we're having them bring their own drugs in a minute, to determine, even for them to determine what amount will make them overdose. There will be medical staff on hand to try and prevent an overdose before it even happens. I also think that, again, if you were a drug user, it wouldn't be in your interest to overdose. I'm not sure any overdoses are intentional, but those that are intended to be suicides. The war on drugs has failed. It has demonstrably failed. You've talked about how we need to take the problem to the criminal underworld, to the core, and I love comic books. I would love to take the fight to the criminals, but this is the real world, and we can't fight these people. It's too big, and it's failed. So what we need to do, no thank you, we need to draw a line in the sand here, and this is why we're having these people bring their own drugs. We, as a responsible society, concerned with the health of all its citizens, cannot abide the decriminalisation of drugs. We can't do that because that says it's okay for you to take this poison which will negatively impact on you and negatively impact on society. But no thank you. But conversely, drugs are illegal at the moment and drug use is still one of the number one causes of harm in our society. So what we have to do, we don't say drugs are okay, and we accept that we can't fight to a significant extent, we can't fight this underworld. So what we say is that we can contain this criminality. What we say is, yes, you may take drugs, and we don't approve of that, but we can help you. No, thank you. It is our societal, civic responsibility to help these people, and they are sick people. Do our hearts not stir when we're walking home at night, and we spot a filthy, huddled mass in the doorway, their glazed eyes cast towards oblivion, an oblivion that they fill by filling up needles and filling up their veins with hard drugs. I am not advocating criminality, but these are people we're talking about here. These are people that we see in our streets every single day, and all the current measures we have taken to help them have not helped. But these centres we're proposing to be built, they can help them. We can lift them out of the doorway, and we can lift them into a controlled scenario where they can take these drugs, which we do not approve of in a moral sense, but they can take these drugs safely because they're going to take them anyway. So
except you're not lifting them out of the doorway, because you don't solve their addiction. Instead, they take it safely in the centre, and then they go back to the street, and then they lie there cold and shivering in the night. So you don't solve that problem, and stop pretending that you do.
This is a step in the right direction. It is a line in the sand issue. I'm eager to hear what the opposition does say about how we're going to solve these addictions. We're not saying that this will completely solve the drugs problem in society, but this will help these people, because that is our compassionate duty to help these people. We know we're not getting to the root cause of this, but it is our responsibility to provide help to these people who are doing it to themselves anyway.
Point information.
No, thank you. We need to care about this. We need to recognise that drug use and drug use within society is a complex issue that may not be able to ever be solved. We may not ever be able to address the root causes and what makes these people take drugs, but it is our responsibility to help them when they do. Is it not better, we've talked about public safety on our streets, is it not better to contain these people and to give them a place where they can go, a centralised hub, which has already been mentioned, which has been proposed in a health service, centralised hubs to give a variety of different healthcare styles to people. These is a centre where these people can go, where we can allow them to take these harmful drugs safely, but also provide them with help to get on the right track. I think it is very important that we do this for these people. It's very important to recognise reality, and that although as much as we would like to take the fight to the suppliers of these drugs and to address the root cause of addiction, that building these centres is a step in the right direction to becoming a compassionate society and helping the sick people within our society.
Next for the opposition, Dr. Craig.
I really just want to throw my medical textbook at this side of the house, to be perfectly honest with you. They've pretty much broken every single rule that Peter should have probably learned by now. He has chosen to just ignore it. So look, I think third prop has sort of touched on the main issue here, which is the root cause of drug taking. Okay, now I'm not going to stand up here and go, let's go full Reagan, as much as I love the man, and let's start going war on terror, let's put tanks out, let's do all of that sort of thing. It doesn't work, we know that, we've tried it, it's fair. Let's learn from our mistakes, let's look at where we went wrong, and let's start going forward. Now, I cannot stand up here and say that setting up these centres will have no use at all. Okay, it's clearly going to have some. Let's just take some basic public health theory here. You can either primarily prevent disease and stop drug use. You can have some secondary prevention where you're going to reduce the impact of the disease, or you can have some tertiary prevention where we soften the impact. This will have a small degree of secondary benefit, so it will reduce some blood-borne viruses. But we've done that already through needle banks. Okay, so just having a centre where we've already got a working scheme mitigates this side of the house on that point. Secondly, with tertiary prevention, it will reduce the amount of overdoses, but that's only if the number of heroin users stays the same. So you've got a very important paradigm that I think first prop brought up. Now the problem is, if you've now got a system where we've decriminalised basically the use of heroin, but we have done nothing to marijuana, what's a child going to do who's 17, 18? Okay, I can go to jail and have a criminal record for using marijuana, or I cannot go to jail and use heroin for a bigger hit. Me, myself, I'd probably take the heroin because I wouldn't want the criminal record.
On that point.
No. Okay, so this is fair. We may have less deaths if we don't increase the amount of heroin users. And we have very little data one way or the other on that. It's equivocal at the moment.
On that point?
No. So, let's look at the primary prevention issues that we have just completely forgotten to talk about on this side of the house. We should be using the political capital that we've got from the deaths, the homelessness that we've currently got, and let's do something constructive about why people take drugs. And this is the most important thing. Now, there are many reasons, it's sort of been touched on by this side of the house. The main thing I've heard from first prop has been boredom. Yes, some people will use heroin from boredom. I think the amount of people that I've met doing so is minimal. There are other reasons. There's pain. It's a key thing. In Northern Ireland, the musculoskeletal surface, so when you've got knee pain and hip pain, is terrible. You're talking 2-year waits to get your knees done. What are you going to do if you can't walk without being in pain? You're going to use what the doctor gives you. When that doesn't work, you're going to find other stuff. That's what happens. Secondly, mental illness. We know the mental illness issues that we've got in Northern Ireland, the UK, and probably Ireland as well. We know that we don't have enough resources put into it. We barely even have the right attitude. Media at the moment is destroying people that have got mental health issues. Okay, they attacked it with the wrong attitude. You watch films nowadays and you see somebody in a psychiatric unit strapped down to a bed. That's not what happens. But in our heads, somebody with schizophrenia is going to be strapped down to a bed because they're that dangerous. And that's the image that everybody usually has when you speak to them about schizophrenia. And that's the media stigma of a mental health illness. And these are the people that on the whole are turning to drugs. So you tell me what we need to do about it, and it's not just set up these centres. Let's move on. Crisis is another major thing. You meet somebody that's about to lose his house, his job, his business, and his friend goes, this will deal with that, this will take away that anxiety. He's in a moment of absolute despair. What's he do? In that moment of weakness, he listens to a friend and he can get addicted to it. We don't have the right types of liaison psychiatrists in our A&E departments right now dealing with this problem. We need to have a better understanding of people with mental health illness, with crisis and with pain. We need to be funding our A&E services, we need to be funding our MSK services. And I know as a Tory I stand up here week in, week out, want to cut. But we all know that the reality of the situation is without that, drug use goes up. So, let's invest, let's capitalise on where we are politically. We know that the homeless crisis at the moment has got a huge drug element. We know we all hate it. Let's not just set up an injection centre and hide these people away in a corner. Let's tackle the root causes of it. This goes nowhere, in any way, shape or form, to start dealing with that problem.
My point.
Now, any single public health initiative needs to reduce health inequality. And I put to you that all this is going to do is increase it. We've said that in fact that heroin use has got some blood-borne viruses issues. Okay, it does. But what about the liver issues, the heart disease, the abscesses, the DVTs, the PEs, and the loss of activities of daily living? Hasn't even discussed that on that side, and I hope closing on this slide can talk about that. What we really need is investment in our A&E services. We need to have a proper addictions unit right having 10 beds in the middle of Holywell that deal with this problem. We need to actually have places where people can go to detox properly. We need to get people off of drugs, not encourage the use of it. Let's make it legal. I'm not any issues of legalising drugs. If that's what the argument people want to put on both sides of the house, that will make no difference here, because we need to stop people from taking them without using the stick. We need to make people not want to use drugs. There's a couple of flaws that I'd love closing to say something about this. What are you going to do if I come in wanting to overdose and I've got a signed do not resuscitate form on me? That means you're condoning suicide. Secondly, is there going to be an age limit on these things, or is a 14-year-old going to be able to come in and just inject up?
On that one.
Yes.
Oh, sorry, that's out of time.
This does do a little good for a few people. Yes, it does. But it doesn't do the most amount of good for the most people, and that's what this side of the house are completely missing. We need to recognise that we should be stopping drug use whilst knowing that full raving does not work. We need to recognise that this is probably going to accelerate the ladder from cannabis up to heroin. And we need to basically realise that all they're doing here is decriminalising something rather than actually attacking the primary, secondary, tertiary causes of preventing drug use. I urge you to vote heavily against this motion.
First case of the proposition, Mr. Connolly.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'm going to start off just firstly with regard to the motion. One of the points states that every time someone shoots off, it may be their last time. We as a proposition don't deny this. We understand the negative health deficiencies come along with hard drug taking, and we understand that this is the case, but we also believe more primarily that people deserve dignity in their life and also in their death, and this is why we believe that we're taking up this argument. I think both sides agree. None of us, some of us are for legalisation, some aren't. I think we are all on the same vein, but it's just how we tackle it that's the problem. But I actually feel like the opposition just don't have a vision at all. I feel like we as a proposition are actually going to try and address the real matter, which is drug addiction. We want to implement these centres to try and reduce the health risks primarily, and the secondary health risks, which would be eventually death. I feel like on the opposition you don't get much, you sort of get the status quo. We want to put, the third speaker told that we want to put more resources into the healthcare system. We never heard that, we never said that this wasn't possible. We want this also. We of course want an extension. Please.
What I'm saying is you're going to take some resource and put them into these centres. It's going to cost you money, time, it's going to cost train staff. It's better off going into primary prevention, and we know that academically primary prevention is better than a bit of secondary and a bit of tertiary prevention.
We personally believe this is in a way of prime. If you address it at the problem, I understand you come from a medical a medical degree, and I respect that. But we believe that this sets division out, whereby as a society we no longer condemn, but we feel sympathy with these people. We actually try and help them, and I think that that's going to be at the forefront. If these clinics, these centres are actually in our streets, I think that we can actually really, as a societal vision, we can improve these. With relation to our house, our side of the house, the proposition, I feel like we can find the motion in a very straightforward, safe, safety way and in very non-slippery terms. And we said, Craig, you said that with regard to 18-year-olds and under, we said that it's going to be for legal for 18 and older. You also said about suicide notes saying not to resuscitate. We again said that within the law we want this to not be the case. If you come into these centres, we have implementation rules whereby this can't be the case. So with regard to that, you asked me to answer, and I feel like I have
Confirmation.
I don't think we must.
Mr. Chairman, so the point at which you're already imposing rules in these centres, you're already putting off people who are already stigmatised and who do not want to come to these centres already. So you're already reducing the amount of people that you're going to help, which further delegitimises the problem that you're on a solution that you're trying to propose.
Thank you. Well, I believe as a state we have to have some sort of rules here. We can't just open these centres with a blank canvas and then make it up as we go along. And I think you'll all agree that we have to have some rules here, and this would just turn into complete barbarism. Again, with regards to our side of the house, we believe it does kill the thrill. And I think maybe some of you have, maybe some of you haven't. That is a big case in terms of taking the thrill of being caught or not caught. And I think that this, again, seeks to detract from that. But the third speaker, again, hit the nail on the head when he just banged on about the lack of vision from the opposition. They can say all they want about the negative effects that these may have, but they actually just pose no future vision. We actually have a vision and we want this to be implemented. They're happy enough to remain part of the status quo. We believe it prevents overdoses. For those people who do wish to commit suicide, I believe that personally that if you wish to commit suicide, that is your choice. I don't see how our implementation of these centres makes a difference in that. Maybe for Craig, for the Tories out there is an economic side to getting people off drugs. There's absolutely no doubt about it. As much as we do pump money into centres such as this, there is also an adverse effect in the long term, in that it will, with proper guidance, it could get people off drugs. I agree, it may not or may, but it can get people off drugs. It gets people into talking to people who have been medically educated and giving them choices out of drug addiction. Please, yes.
How would you address the people who believe it's morally wrong for their taxes to be pumped into facilitating drug taking?
Well, we can say about anything. We can say about obesity, we can just say about honestly anything. I agree that these are all choices that we make. I would argue, of course you can argue mental sides to obesity, but you can also argue mental sides to drug taking. And there's a lot, myriad of things where taxes get pumped in that we're not too happy about. So I understand what you're saying, but you can make that argument for a lot of things. Some degree courses maybe this university do not have, it's not my point. With regards to the first, I'll just put a rebuttal with regards to the first speaker. I do feel like he did just extend that point. His points were valid, but again, both sides would agree here, and I think that his was just an extension of our argument with regards to decriminalisation. I think we can all agree on that. And with regards to the second speaker, no, thank you. Sorry. With regards to the second speaker, we don't wish to pull the wall over anyone's eyes. We're not sitting here saying that these centres are going to be absolutely great and it's going to solve the drug problems of the world. We're not saying that. We agree that there can be hiccups along the way. I'm not going to say that this is just going to be clean cut, but I think generally, and I believe that my side of the house also presents this, that this is an option and that we can make real progress with it. Finally, I believe also that we can reduce mental illness, but with regard to conclusion, I'm going to move on in a kind of John Stuart Mill-esque vein of thought. I am of the belief that as autonomous human beings, we have the right to do with our sovereign bodies as we see fit. The friction is where that liberty infringes upon others, upon the non-addicted human being. And this is where our motion seeks to aid in this confrontation and in this discussion. We've heard the best from both sides of this discussion. And indeed, both are valid and important as we need to get this right. However, small print aside, we need to think bigger and with more courage on this problem. We need a vision. The privileged citizens, well represented here tonight, are okay with the status quo, as it does not affect them. But as a government, as a society, we need to think of real progress and of a real promising future for all that exists within it. We here in the proposition wish to introduce this vision. Let's make it happen. Thank you.
That's the case for the opposition and therefore our debate this evening. Mr. Comerall. Mr. Chairman, members of the House, for this Dufferin debate, I wanted to try and be funny tonight, which is not my usual habit. But instead, towards the end of this debate, I've ended up angry. I'm angry because the proposition has tried to deceive you that their proposal offers a utopian society where people can take drugs without consequences. They've held this narrative that you can inject heroin, be resuscitated, and be fine. This is false. They fall back on this idea that because we criticise their proposal, we do nothing. And simply because they do something, they are better off. But what we have critiqued to say, or what we are critiquing their policy for saying, is that the thing that they do creates more drug addicts, creates more harm, and that is why you're better off voting for our side. So there are three things I want to talk about. Two things I want to talk about primarily. One, this doesn't solve the issues the motion aims to solve, and secondly, that it saps political will to actually make those changes. But first I'd like to engage in some rebuttal. So Mr. Glasgow stands up and says that he may not have a decent grasp of economics. I agree. Under the current the proposal that they have suggested creates perverse incentives for criminals. Under the current system, a criminal gang has some incentive to keep their drugs clean because it encourages their customers to return. If they die, they get a bad reputation, and so nobody buys any more drugs off them. Now, under the system that they propose, with heroin testing kits in these facilities, people find the bad drugs, so they do not die, a bad reputation does not get attacked, and because these people are already drug addicts, they go back to the same supplier and they buy more drugs, which means that all the activities that drugs like heroin fund like paramilitary groups in Northern Ireland, they continue to get funding, and not only that, they continue to get more funding because people come back time and time again to buy more drugs. So why does this not solve the issue that it aims to solve? One, people are still going to get addicted to drugs. As Dr. Miller and Hugh have already suggested, this proposal gives perverse incentives to go for harder drugs.
On that point.
No, thank you. So Craig has already outlined all the problems of escapism and pain relief that drugs help relieve. So people want to take them. But under this decriminalised system that they propose, softer drugs remain criminalised. If you have the choice between having a prison sentence for marijuana or shooting up for heroin at one of these centres and not getting a criminal sentence, then you take the heroin. You would, because for all the job prospects that you later on have life that will be denied you for a criminal sentence, you will take the harder drug. Yes.
Right, so...
Stan, when you're making your point? Go on.
Right. So what you're saying is we're going to use heroin rather than cannabis because heroin is somewhat legal. No, if you get caught with heroin
Why will they take the harder drug even in this safer environment, even though it is the harder and more potentially lethal drug? Right, it's a thing called the safety paradox. Why, when people drive their cars with seatbelts on, are there still the same number of accidents and deaths than there was when seatbelts were not compulsory? It's because when you put a seatbelt on in a car, you drive faster, you drive more aggressively because you think you are safe. In a world where these centres exist, people go thinking that they are safer, that they think there's a doctor on site that can resuscitate them, that will stop them taking bad drugs and will stop them from dying. At that point, they go further, they go harder, and they shoot up faster. And so what does that mean?
Because these are harder drugs, they become more addicted to them. So they go back more often. They have all the problems then, the long-term problems that the proposition is not talking about in drug use, like mental health issues, like muscle problems, because they are pushed into taking harder drugs. Secondly, because of all the things I've already talked about future career incentives, about not having criminal sentences because of drugs. No, thank you. They will still take the harder drugs because they don't want to lose those opportunities later on. On that point? No, thank you. Right. So in 4 minutes now, proposition have also admitted that they are not reducing, or they're not addressing the root causes of this issue. Okay? We have had admissions from the last two speakers that they are not addressing the root causes of this issue. So Dr. Miller has already highlighted that we need better funding for A&E. We need better funding so that there's psychiatrists online or up there that can talk about addiction, that can help people work through, so that when people do suffer from these things, rather than just going, all right, mate, see you next week, so that we can help you, with your bring your own drug centre, right? Rather than just patting them on the door and no thank you, and saying we'll see you then. People at A, we need better funding for A&E, so that psychiatrists are actually there while they're in hospital and saying, mate, you need help. And this is how we're going to give it to you. No. And I'm going to preempt what he was going to say, because I bet he's going to tell me that that at these centres, because there'll be posters everywhere, that they're going to be pushed in and helped. No, they're not, because for all the reasons that I've already outlined in points of information, that they're suffering from stigma already, and they don't want to be helped, and they want to be in the dark and want to take these drugs without interference, they're not going to go into these programmes. But no, thank you. But secondly, because for all the issues of finding less needles in the street, for finding for less needles being found in the street, for less people dying publicly, we've also sapped all the political will to actually make a change about these issues. So what they've said is that we do nothing because we don't help the poor person huddled in the door. But the problem is, neither do they. Because when that poor person in the door doesn't die, granted he doesn't die, and that is a marginal benefit. But in the long run, because of all the harder drugs that I've told you about and the increased rate of addiction to those harder drugs, there are more people like him. It doesn't address the root causes. And so as they sit there, dreaming of their next hit, we look at them and go, well, what could we have done? And the thing is that we need better legalisation. We actually need legalisation of drugs to solve all these root issues, to get rid of the funding for paramilitary, to clean up the drug supply chain. But when less people are dying of drug overdoses, when less needles are being found in play parks, nobody cares. It isn't an issue you go out and vote for. So not only is that per person shivering in the alleyway still sitting there, there's now more of them, and they tell us that we do nothing. So in conclusion, ladies and gentlemen, this policy has more problems than me overseeing a honorific election. It doesn't solve and it stops the political action that is necessary to actually make the change. So I beg you to oppose it.
Right, on that note, the day is over, the withering sarcasm has been deployed, the judges are yet to convene, I'll continue talking because I've just reshuffle out.
Leon.
To be honest, asking questions of the candidates tonight is a little bit fruitless given the circumstances, so I think what we'll do is we'll just keep playing around in just a minute. I have a great one to start.
Maybe one.
I saw one round of questions.
What? My back.
No! That's my chair.
You never sit that chair.
Right, okay, one question to this proposition. Yourself, sir.
Cher said that taking drugs was a criminal issue, but I want to know health centres. I just want clarification. Are drugs a health issue or a criminal issue?
Do you state your name there, sir, for the record as well?
Liam Mack.
Well, I suppose the way in which drugs have been dealt with by the criminal law has not been conducive to the good of either drug users or society. At the moment, it is almost a strange mixture of both, where you can often be caught with drugs and not be criminalised simply because the courts and the justice system recognises that this isn't necessarily the best way. I think with our centres, it is a clear skirting of the law, allowing people to take these drugs which are illegal, but at the same time we have to recognise as a society that the criminalisation of drugs is almost more of a moral statement about our opposition to them, and has really had not a lot of material effect in bringing down drug use.
Opposition, would you like to respond?
I don't think it's a criminal issue at all. I think it's a failing of society, it's a failing of the healthcare system. And most people turn to drugs, like I say, not for boredom. It does occur, but it's not the main reason. It's usually due to a failing somewhere else, whether it be at your GP, whether it be with your local A&E. It's usually a failure in one of those two places. So it's directly as a healthcare issue, you look at why people take it. I think that you've got to realise, why would you make a drug illegal? And it's usually to basically, so a company can earn money when you put them in jail. That's what's going on in Reagan America. So that private companies who are running the jails could earn money. The more people you put in jail, the more money the companies were making. So there's a self-fulfilling prophecy. Let's get harder on drugs. Let's put more people in jail. Let's make more money. So you've got to look at, how do you actually stop the cause of drugs, and it comes down to primary healthcare issues. It comes from improving social mobility, it comes from improving social support, it comes from improving the way in which we will relate to services. It's nothing to do with the criminal system.
On that, we'll take a question from the opposition. Really? Okay.
Stand us and stand
A half-assed question, but still a question.
Let me just pause it a minute. Okay, Conor, there was one point in your speech where you said addicts don't want help. I would like you to expand on that, because personally, I think that's an incredibly polarised vision of the situation, and I don't think it's a fair assessment for those people who are suffering with addiction.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, members of the House. I'm still suffering from the adrenaline hit of my speech, so I may have said a couple of things, or perpetuated a couple of things that I didn't mean to take so far. What I meant to say is that, yes, you're right, not all addicts don't want help. There are some addicts that do want help. But the thing is that addicts already suffer all of the stigma that they currently get in society, right? And they suffer a lot of bad stigma. You need to watch movies like Trainspotting to see that the public image of the heroin addict is a negative one. It's people that look like corpses, they are white, they're pale, they're thin. It's horrible. They already feel judged by society. Now, at that point, when they go into these health centres, they're going in there because they just want to take the drug and they want to get out as soon as possible. They don't want to interact with other people. I think that is a fair assessment, Because at the point at which that they are already taking these drugs on their own, they don't want to interact, they feel ashamed to be taking them, they're addicted. So they want to go in and get out. When someone then approaches them and says, do you fancy going into rehab? They're not going to come back to that centre, Because they feel judged even more, they feel like their activity is illicit and bad, and they already feel those feelings of stigma and guilt. And so to be told them outright in front of their face in an environment which is supposed to be helping them means that those people turn away from the centres, they don't come back, and so all the benefits that Matthew Sullivan was championing in his speech, going that it solves all of these wonderful things, don't happen because they go once and then they don't come back.
Opposition, if they'd like to respond?
Just with regard to that, I got my hand for unfortunately in a certain time to respond, which when I didn't get selected. But Mr. Arden's made a lot of sweeping statements about what it would be like to be a drug addict. With respect, I do feel like we don't really have a clue here. Hopefully, we won't speak anywhere with regard to the primary use of it. The idea that people go here and just want to get in and get out, again, I've seen a lot of YouTube, documentaries in the Netherlands and stuff where people actually go there and stay there for hours while it's high, because it's actually the only human interaction that they get. And so I feel that as much as I think you spoke actually tonight, and you made a lot of sweeping statements as if you're the first person primary user of drugs. Hopefully not. but I also feel like, not this disingenuous, but I think it's inaccurate as the name of a hard drug.
And with that we'll take any abstaining questions on the motion. If you give thoughts, there's something that neither side addressed that you'd like to have a bit more information on yourself, Sergeant?
I just want to clarify, what does both sides think a health centre is? Is there people like mental health professionals that are talking with the drug users and trying to clean them off the drugs? Because I don't see why people just go in there to take drugs and then leave. I don't think that's what's happening.
Proposition have first right of response.
Yes. As I sort of touched upon in my speech before, so I trailed off into infinity. The approach from which we're coming, or the way we're approaching this is, I've seen recently in the news proposals that we should have centralised healthcare hubs with things like psychiatric services, physio, GP, all in the one place, which helps cut costs as well. It also helps makes it easier for people to access these services. I think that when we have these injection centres, the ways in which we're helping would include having mental health professionals on hand, having even, I don't know, things like dietitians. I don't know, Craig, if that's good to have dietitians there, but a wide spectrum of healthcare professionals, as well as people like social workers who can help these people out. Because as I said, what we're trying to do, we're trying to help these people. We don't necessarily know how to prevent what they're doing, but we can help them out of it. So.
Yeah. So on the whole, and there probably are variations of the model, they're generally a nurse-led centre. Okay, so they're generally either an A&E nurse or a mental health nurse that's going to be running them. They're not specifically an addiction service. Okay, so addiction services generally psychiatry. These will generally fall under people that are generally A&E trained. Okay, so there are different sections within even the nurses training. They're generally trained to provide clean equipment, whether it be from the spoon, the tourniquet, alcohol wipes. Okay, because even like just using an alcohol wipe can reduce an abscess or a DVT. All the way up to being able to deliver like IM, so intramuscular, naloxone if there is an overdose. They generally won't even be able to get on the whole IV access. Okay, so they'll be able to put a line in because their veins are so shot on. So they're typically nurse-led centres to mitigate against the things that the proposition had correctly said, reduces blood-borne viruses and reduces the effect of overdose. But that is it, and that is typically where the model comes from, the limit of where they're going to be.
Right, so with that, I think we'll go, this isn't really official in any capacity, but while the judges are out there, I thought it might be interesting to have sort of an indicative vote as to what side the audience thought on tonight. So, I think we'll go for, if you thought the proposition won the debate for this evening, or if you believe that the motion should pass tonight, based on the speeches given this evening, please raise your hands and say aye.
Say aye.
That's more like it. Say aye. A bit more enthusiasm, please. And if you think the motion should fail, having heard the speeches tonight, please raise your hands and say nay.
Nay. Oh, that's us.
And abstention to be followed. Nay.
Can you help?
It's cool. In any capacity, but the name is and with that, and in the interest of killing time, we shall do a round of just a minute. Speaking on the motion, this house would kill off James Bond, the character. Who would like to start off just a minute? Who would like to kill off James Bond? John McAlin, I saw that man shoot right up there.
I've never actually watched James Bond. It's a terrible movie. We'd all just admit that. They're all dreadful. But James Bond has been going on for so many years. I think it's just time that we decide that it's just repetitive, that we choose.
Repetition of weight. I, like John, have not seen James Bond, so I'm going to make many presumptions about its plot. I presume that it's a very boring film about this man leading his daily life. James Bond is probably an office worker, he's a taxi driver, therefore, what does the world lose by killing off James Bond? I ask yourself, what has James Bond ever added to the universe? From my perspective, I see nothing. When I woke up this morning, I asked, would I care if James Bond was killed off? No. So moving forward through the day, I thought more about this, and the fact is that James Bond adds nothing. He adds nothing to film.
Repetition of nothing. Okay, first of all, even for it's fictional, killing people is wrong. James Bond, and I know James Bond because I saw Spectre in the cinemas.
And she's
That's
won.
only what I've seen.
She's won.
Yes, sir. Can I ask a question? Am I the only one who's seen all Daniel Craig, James Bond films? They're really quite good.
Excuse me, are you trying to tell me that Quantum of Solace is good?
It was acceptable. Shit, acceptable. Shit.
No, trust me, Quantum of Solace.
I've just seen that scene where he gets out of the water on the beach, but based on that, they're quite good.
No. So does anyone have an alternative motion for just a minute they'd like to put forward, putting equally ludicrous?
I've won as a winner.
Is it ludicrous?
No, it's not.
Then we're moving on.
This house believes that flags are art.
How left field can you get?
You can tell.
Does anyone want to speak on that?
No.
Is this speaking on that one?
I can speak in that motion.
Sure, help me, sir.
To confirm, motion was this house believe flags are art?
Yeah.
Flags. 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 Oh, that's fine. Go ahead.
I thought she was just being somebody going to speak on the subject?
Yes.
Flags
Our flag is the greatest symbol of our culture. Our culture.
As an amateur vexillologist myself.
Agitation for lost. We're not allowed that sort of thing here. Flags are undoubtedly art, otherwise we wouldn't see them all about the place, would we? It's quite mad, isn't it, flags? It's just horrible, horrible things. But we enjoy, yes. Of what?
Green, horrible, horrible.
Yeah.
Green, white, orange, blue, white, and red.
Flags are not art. Flags are a miracle of design. They feature brilliant.
I can't decide because there was literally a millisecond.
No, it was definitely a
draw. That was the draw. What do we hear of the draw?
Rerun it! This has to be flags.
Alright, what do you think of the motion? This house would preemptively invade Spain.
Yes!
So I'm not actually as funny as I think.
Yeah. Well, I did that, you fool. Did a damn better job as well.
So preemptively invade Denmark. Alright,
I know you don't give a shit about other countries. I've seen that.
That's a lot more.
hesitation.
No, okay, so I've basically just been to Copenhagen. I learned about the history of the place. Jesus Christ! I basically learned about the history, and basically they caved in to Hitler's thoughts in World War II, and I feel like they deserve to pay for their crimes. And so they basically sent away the Jews, and Hitler came in and was okay.
Occupation of Hitler, sir.
Jeez.
Hesitation.
Time has not started yet.
Oh?
For the love of God, start now!
Okay, this is hesitation.
Now, I've never been to Denmark. I don't know much about the place. I've seen it in a couple of dramas and they're quite good. The one with the bridge, I think, was set in Denmark. What's aviation? Talking about a Danish TV show.
Why would it be? Stop talking about the invasion of Denmark.
I'm getting to the point. I'm saying that we should invade Denmark because they keep producing these depressing shows which surely across the land are resulting in takeovers, pivotal, abject despair.
The bottom line is, as much as I want to go to war with Spain and Syria and Denmark, the real country I really want to go to war with is
So I've been to Denmark myself. I've been to the bridge which Chris mentioned. It's called the...
Two things we all know that Denmark exports are pastry and bacon, and those are creating a massive obesity epidemic. If we invade, we can remove these exports completely.
On that point, sir, repetition of exports.
Affirmative.
So as I was saying earlier on, they keep depressing our youth. And everyone.
That's dear God. Painful again. Next motion.
This house would do all the drugs.
So tasty.
but we have a magic word.
Alright, this house would do
Alright, protected word.
Okay, we'll do that.
The judges are bad.
So one more round. This house would do all the drugs. To start off doing all the drugs, my secretary is Robert.
Weed, cocaine, heroin, cat, methamphetamines. These are the things that make me happy. In this depressing life of ours, there are only certain things which we can turn to when things get...
On that point, sir, repetition of things. Just to clarify, this house will do all the drugs?
Yes.
Could you even imagine what that would be like to be on all of the drugs? The kind of high you would get from it, the kind of low.
The kind of repetition. So like I was saying, when life gets you down, sometimes you need to rack up a few lines, roll up a few squid, rest up a few.
Now, it's clear to me that we should not take all the drugs. Now, I don't know about anyone else here, but I'm perfectly happy living. We have seen the campaigns not even once. If we are taking every single one...
Mr. Hugh Dublin, everyone. Nobody picked up on Rob's cheating. At least 25% of his speech was on nihilism. But anyway, apparently our judges have come to a decision, and they are going to the local before they announce the winner of this evening's debate. So I welcome to the court whoever is going to give their point. Mr. James McNally.
Hello. Thank you all for coming tonight to the Annual Dufferin competition. We like to do it as a society because we like to celebrate not just like the old guard, but like creative speak, like just, whenever wrestlers kind of stop them from speaking, but also we like to celebrate people like who have joined the society and who have improved. And I think this is my last year of society, and it was really encouraging to see like lots of new speakers, lots of people who only joined this year, speaking at such a high level and displaying such a degree of improvement. So yeah, I hope the rest of the house agrees with me in that. So I won't keep everyone too long because you've all been here for long enough, I'm sure. I won't keep everyone too long with a really nerdy explication of like why the debate went and why it did. I think it was a really interesting debate because the opposition side kind of accepted a lot of the premises that Prop got about there being marginal benefits. It became a quite interesting debate about how you mitigate certain harms and how certain benefits might sort of be benefits in disguise. And also, interestingly, it became a debate about what do we owe people who suffer from addiction and how do we best fulfill whatever it is they deserve. So that's sort of broadly the frame through which we saw the debate. If any of the speakers after would like to come and speak to any of us, we can explain to you a bit better about you and why the position went the way it did. Anyway, without further ado, the winner of this year's doctor competition is Dr. Craig Newman.
So congratulations to Dr. Craig Newman for winning this year's Dufferin medal.
Where's the medal?
In all of our hearts. Go ask the Dufferin to give us
I'll let the treasurer buy it.
No pressure. Yes, well, that's our. We'll say congratulations to all the participants who put on a fantastic show. It's great to see so many debaters who at the start of this year, between now and the start of this year, have improved so much. You've all come on leaps and bounds. It's been a pleasure to chair all of you debating over all this time. I have to say I'm actually going to miss it. I'm not going to tear up. It's been fantastic. And with that, for what is coming close to one of the final times, let's all go to the pub. Morgan Hickman thankfully reminded me of my constitutional duty. It's more of a crossing the I's and dotting the T's type thing. We forgot to ratify the tech officer at the beginning of this meeting, so nobody's going to vote against him anyway. He's a terrible character. All in favour of ratifying the new tech officer to the role, please raise your hands and say aye. Aye. All against say nay. Nay. Oh, God's sake. Are we here?
I'm giving you a left. Do it.
And with that, the tech officer for the 169th session of the Literary and Scientific Society is a ratified. We're going to the parlour this week, not the house. Yes. Lots of space. Right. All quite slowly, guys. Stick around to get a photo.